Greetings, yogis. Welcome to the mat. I'm glad you're joining me here. Oh, it's a beautiful, kind of moist, humid day. It just feels great. And so I'm actually excited to be offering you a heat building practice. You're like, what? And then we're also going to be doing a cooling breath. So I think it'll be a nice combination. And as we get into hotter summer days, these are just pleasantly warm for me anyway. It's nice to have that cooling breath as a way to shift your energy, and it not only physically cools, but of course provides also a calming energy. So if you're finding yourself heated up on an emotional, mental kind of framework, this is a good breath to move to as well. Of course, like relaxation breath and other ones that just really take our nervous system down a notch. So we'll be getting into that right at the end of practice before Shavasana. A few things actually that I'd like to mention that you should have on hand today if you can, is some kind of strap. I'm using my kind of scarf thing because I find it's actually easier than my long yoga strap. We're going to be doing something behind our back here where we want to be able to hang on to it. So anything that doesn't stretch basically would be fine for that. Definitely recommend having your block. I'm going to be talking through some of the supports that it can provide, say, in a kind of more, a deeper version of your warrior work, so specifically lateral stretch. And then, I don't know if you have a bolster, but if you do, have it on hand, because I'll be showing you a different way to do Shavasana using the bolster, actually 2 different ways, that are just a little more supported, a little more calming. You could also even take a roll-up yoga mat and create a little bit of some of the same effect, basically that allows the spine to be kind of supported this direction and creates room for the shoulders to sort of drape open, opening the chest space, versus sometimes being on the floor can feel a little awkward for some of us and feel a little bunched up. So anyway, ideally some of those on hand if you can. All right, we're going to actually be starting our practice today laying face down. And I chose that because it's a more introverted position. We know that every shape that our body takes sends us a message, right? We talked recently about this shape being expressive and creative of joy, of good mood, kind of anti-depression, if you will, kind of fatigue. Child's pose, of course, is inward and nurturing. And this being on our belly in general says, I'm turning in, I'm tuning in. So that's why I'm offering it. If it's not comfortable for you, then just come onto your back body and do the same focuses as we're doing, or standing if you'd like. And then we're going to be coming into our practice from that belly on the mat position into cobra and so on. So at some point you would want to join us there, although again, there are always standing alternatives to, say, jet airplane and so on. So depending on where your body is at today, with wrists, shoulders, everything, be here on the mat, make adjustments, edit out the stuff that doesn't work for you, and it's just know that your practice is perfect. It doesn't have to look like exactly what I'm doing. It shouldn't, actually. It should be exactly what your body needs today. So thank you so much again for being here with me. It means so much to connect with you here. Let's come on to our front bodies. So I'm going to have you come down. I'm going to be seated for the beginning, so it's just easier to talk and have you hear me. So as you come onto your front body, you have the option, of course, of having your head to the left or to the right, or sometimes placing your hands just on top of one another can provide a little bit of a support. You could also rest on the forehead, but that is a hard position to relax for breathing in and out. So take time, wiggle around, and then close your eyes and tune in. We can literally look up and in behind the center of the forehead, third eye point, an area of insight, but also introversion. And for now, just inviting all the muscles of the face to soften, the cheeks, the tongue. You might end up with kind of a smush face. Wonderful. Just begin to witness the presence of breath. It's flowing in and out in that very gentle way, its own wisdom that doesn't need you to direct it. And please begin to notice where you feel breath touching you, moving you, massaging you. Again, at this point, the movements are very subtle because the breath itself is just a soft wave. But there's a lot going on if you really deepen your attention. Noticing the rising and settling of the body, fabric moving against your skin. Noticing even what does it feel like to be still and quiet, nothing to know, do, or accomplish. What does that feel like to your being? This moment, this body, this breath. I'm going to direct your attention to your front of your lungs, so the area in the chest. And I would like you for the next few breaths to please just try and sense movement in the front of the lungs. Just watching it, witnessing. And notice if being attentive to the breath even changes it in some way. Sometimes it makes it harder to breathe, like we find ourselves feeling self-conscious or short of breath. Other times we can find a beautiful lengthened wave of breath inspired just coming over us, and we get the deepest inhale that we've had in days. And now please switch your attention to the back of the lungs, so the whole area between the shoulder blades, out into the blades, and even into the kind of lower part of the ribs. The lungs extend all the way down, and as they expand, they create an effect actually all the way into the waistline. So when we get a deep breath, it can actually expand all the way into that deep kidney area and kind of the upper part of the hips at the back. A few breaths there, just watching, witnessing, being curious. Notice if the mind wanders, bring it back to breath attention. And if you've not already, please add your ujjayi, great sounding breath, that little contraction with the throat. If it's too difficult in this position, obviously leave it out, and also you might want to switch your head to the other side. We won't be here very much longer. Please make sure that it is sustainable, you're not taking on neck tension. And with your ujjayi now, try to deepen or expand breath into that front and back area. You could even think also about the side area, the ribs, and the kind of gills of the fish that I talk about, that side rib cage that could be kind of flaring out. We'll do just a few thoughtful, willful breaths here. Full lung expansion. And with that addition of ujjayi, I hope it becomes easier for you to notice the gap or pause that exists between the turns of the breath. Asking, is there more? Is there more? We're going to take this same deep watching, excuse me, a little wheezy today, all the stuff in the air. Take that deep breath attention into our movements. So as we come into cobra and other things, please have the attention be more on the breath than the movement itself. Let the breath inspire the movement. So as you're ready, come to rest on the forehead. And first, take the shoulders, or take the elbows into kind of wings as I think of it, and kind of flap those wings out, bringing your elbows kind of up to the height of the shoulders, and then squeezing in. And as I'm doing this, I've got my hands off the floor a moment. I'm just creating a little movement and a range of motion, warming in the shoulder joints. And then please engage in that downward position, what I think of as no wings, no shrug, shoulder heads anchored, hands planted. Anchor down through the pelvic triangle, so that's the pubic bone and hip bones. And so with that, your back should feel really comfortable. And as your next inhale comes, invitation to let the breath extend the spine. And you might only come an inch off the floor, it might be 3. We're going to come into the cobra on the inhale and return exhale. We're going to do this a number of times. Inhaling, extending, elongating, shoulder heads anchoring. Is there more? Exhaling and slowly descending. Is there more? And you can relax your glutes, your butt cheeks if you want in between. And re-engage, inhaling, extend. Watching breath into front and back of the lungs, exhaling, return. You can always kind of redo your wing, no shrugs, checking it out. Inhaling, extending, exhaling, returning. And each time you might find that there's the freedom and the inspiration to go higher, maybe not. If you'd like, you might add a little king cobra at some point, and that's activating the arms a little bit, drawing the heart forward. You could even reach the chin briefly up. Exhaling, returning. Couple more, whatever your version is. And release and relax. Arms might be at your side or up by the head, whatever's comfortable. Join me, please, in sighing breaths. Inhale, exhale. Last one. Again, the inhale moving into the front and back body. And in this moment, just settle. Practice softening, non-doing. If we're constantly in preparation for doing, we actually won't have the energy for it when we get there, and we won't ever really know what it is to relax. So it's such a vital practice. Returning to the forehead, bring the arms back for jet airplane, fingertips tented, shoulder heads anchored, and again pelvis anchored. Letting breath initiate motion, inhaling, extend. Exhaling, return. We're going to do a few more, and so as we do, you might decide to release the hands off the floor. I generally keep the legs anchored because I find a lot of back tension if I do the leg extension or lift every time. So just notice what works for you. And one more like so. Invitation then to add arms forward. So I'm going to just do one at a time. I'm going to inhale, extend, and sweep one arm forward. And exhale, return. If this is an awkward angle for your shoulder, don't do the sweep, or do it in a different way where you might just be bringing the arm kind of in and up. Or you could have both arms already over your head and be lifting. That's an option too. Good. And now if your arms weren't already above you or in front of you, please bring them there. We're going to do one full body extension into our Superman. So as you are ready, again, if this is bothersome on your shoulders, then bring them back to jet airplane
or take them wider. Power down through the pelvis. Inhale, lengthen, and allow that to bring the body up. And if you can, hold, but allowing the breath to pulse you. So this is not static. Breath moving into front and back body. And release. Press back to your child's pose. Take those knees a little wide. Go ahead and wiggle those hips. This is, again, so valuable. Any organic movement that we add is often the most important thing we'll do in our entire practice. Lovely. I'm going to invite you now to take your hands a little to the right and then settle the head back down. Deep breath, perhaps feeling the breath now into that left side. And a reminder to always add any sighing breaths. Again, that's part of the organic inspiration, if you will, is noticing when that feels good. Let's lift the head and move to the other side, getting as long as you can from right hand to right hip. Oh yeah, loving that side body stretch. And a reminder that anytime you can't breathe, you've gone past your edge. And so you need to backtrack to a place, maybe even in resting pose or something completely different, but otherwise backtrack to a level that you could breathe into. You could nourish the body while perhaps in intensity. That's the edge. Lifting the head, come on back to center. I'm going to bring my knees in for puppy stretch. So as you're ready, the furthest you would go, remember, is hips over knees. So if you're kind of unsure of how your shoulders are feeling today, start with the hips further back. Walk those hands forward, settle on the forehead, and observe. If anything is feeling kind of awkward or icky, you might even adjust further backward. Otherwise, scooching a little forward until you find that place that when you give your chest to gravity, there's a marvelous stretch through the chest, the shoulders, the armpits. I can even feel this way into my upper arms. If you've been doing a lot of gardening stuff, you might be similarly carrying a lot of tension in there. And again, please let breath inspire movement, a lovely lifting and settling of your body. I often like to say that yoga is a massage that you give your body. And if you come at it with that perspective, you'll get so much more out of it than I'm going to accomplish the perfect pose. So making sure that breath is moving your body in space. And then tucking the tailbone, come on up, walk those hands in. And take a moment, if you would, and just do some nice kind of, again, range of motion. I'm going to offer a shoulder stretch today that is gearing us up to the one with the strap or scarf that I mentioned. But this doesn't work for everybody always, and so I want to just mention the alternate pose would be to go up against a wall and to kind of have your arm behind you, if you will, and to breathe into it like so. We're going to be doing a floor version, and again, there are lots of ways to amend this. The most important thing here, I'm going to have you have your left hand planted, you're going to take your right arm out behind 90 degrees, is that shoulder head is anchored. So it's already in a nice stable position. I'm going to bend my left leg. Now and turn my face to the left. The easiest position for the body and spine is to bring the left knee out into a frog pose. And then I'm just going to use that left hand to kind of press into a twist a little bit for that right shoulder to get a stretch. That's not going to do it for everybody, but this is the safest position for like people who have low back instability. Otherwise, you're going to take that left foot behind you, and I'd like it to touch down on the floor, if at all possible. So however forward or back you have to be. And then make any adjustments that you need to make in your right shoulder to have it feel good. And you're going to breathe, and I want that left hand right in front of the face, not kind of forward. So this is your stable position. And if this just doesn't feel good, then let your palm rotate open to the sky, your back arm, I mean. Otherwise, that palm is flat, and you're creating a nice stretch there Deep, deep breathing. It's a great place to get a stretch into the chest and also kind of behind that right shoulder blade. That's one of the things that I appreciate about this and the wall version. When you're ready, come on back nice and slow. Move that right hand back into its position, hand flat. We'll bring the left arm out 90 behind us, turn the face to the right, and either bringing that right knee out into your frog or the right foot coming behind like so. And again, shoulder heads are anchored. Breathing and observing. Is this side different? Does it need a different angle? Like I said, if the shoulder doesn't appreciate this at this angle, you could let the hand rotate towards the sky. Not going to be the same, obviously, but if it feels good and you can welcome it, then that's your position. And slowly on back. Marvelous. This time we're going to bring the hands together behind the back and slowly rotate those shoulder heads down into Yoga Mudra. You could do a standing version of this. You could also grab your strap. If you're not able to get the shoulder head rotating down and in, you want to add that because this is the delicious part of the stretch. The really useful part is where those shoulder blades come in towards each other. Oh. And I often find it feels good to do, again, a little side-to-side movement. And release. Plant the hands once more. Press back to your child's pose. Last position here is this active arm position. And you don't have to add this, of course. This is an optional add-on. It really gets some good strengthening going in the muscle groups that often don't get it in our daily life. So you're going to tent your fingertips and spider walk them forward, powering back through the pelvis and seeing how, again, spacious you can get between fingertips and your butt. And that should get then the arm up off the floor. If you simply can't, you can't. You could also walk them a little wider. So if you're feeling any restriction in your neck, please do. Otherwise, join me, please, in about 2 or 3 more breaths. Really feel the massage that you get in your upper back and ribs here. Front and back and side. Lovely. And on your next exhale, tuck the tailbone. Let it bring you on up into your table pose. Good. We're going to come into our first downward facing dog. Intelligent hands. Curl those toes under. Inhaling, draw forward. Exhaling, cat. So cow-cat pose, bringing some spinal fluidity, but also, again, directing breath into parts of the body. So as you ask in cow pose, is there more? Is there more? If you're patient, you'll get a breath that can stretch all the way up into the clavicle, just like we do in 3-part breathing. So we didn't do compression and expansion today, or robot, or some of those that we've often started with. So this is your chance right here to get that core engaged. Deep, deep power, belly into spine, so much that you don't need your hands, right? You can clap, you're at that center body. Ujjayi, soft tongue, tip of it connected. Last time, and you're going to take it up into your downward facing dog. Check that you've got those intelligent hands first. And when you're ready, up and back. Good. Go ahead and start pedaling it out. We're going to be revisiting some of the alignment details of dog series today. And I just think it's a great reminder. It's also amazingly hard work to hold some of these poses, but it's a good heat builder, and that's part of what we're doing. So first, in our downward dog, kind of come forward just a little bit. Make sure that your shoulder heads are rotating open away from the ears. Bend the knees and then use that powerful arm alignment and core to send the hips up and back. Imagine there's sort of a button behind the hips that you want to push on. Hold, notice. Good, and now we're going to come forward again a little bit more. So we're almost into plank, and then exhale, press back towards dog again, and see if you can work your heels towards the floor. We don't care if they ever get to the floor. We prefer to have the knees bent and heels raised and be in alignment in that upper body. We don't want to be kind of in a crouch. We want to be in a nice kind of A shape. Good. See if you got one more. Good. And release. I'm just going to come onto my knees and release and roll out wrists and so on. In the long run, dog series is amazing for stabilizing wrists and shoulders and so on. But in the beginning, it can be a lot. And a reminder that if you simply cannot have your hands in that position, that alternate to downward facing dog, it's actually called dolphin, and you're on your forearms like so. That's almost a harder pose because it creates a deeper stretch of the hamstrings, but it is a nice alternate for wrists. Similarly, we're going to be coming into plank now. You could be doing forearm plank. Those adjustments make flow harder, but that's one reason I have this kind of non-flow class, if you will, yoga basics, is because I want you to take time to notice what really works in your body. And if flow is never a thing, big whoop, right? We got plenty of ways to build heat and so on. So I'll provide options today, reminders of how to do that. So again, you would either come onto your forearms and step back into your plank and simply hold and create the same awareness that we're going to be working on our wrists, or on our hands. So in plank, whether you're coming there from downward dog or however you get there, the goal is to have the weight in the circle of the palm. If you're feeling it really right in that kind of bottom of the palm and wrist, your hands are probably too far forward, like mine are right now. So I want you to adjust until you feel that, and it should also make it easier to anchor those shoulders down. Now another nice option here is knee down plank. And the main thing that I want you to please be aware of is how your lower back is feeling. And if it's feeling at all kind of funky or you feel weak, one of the things you want to check first is that you're not swag. This is swag, my body's kind of hanging. I want you to tuck that tailbone. And hey folks, if you already know all this, you can just be holding in and exploring breath in the pose in your strong, beautiful version of it. Otherwise, if this is kind of new or hard for you, you're experimenting with me to find that pelvic tuck where again you feel super strong, like you can just bam, push the floor away. Good, let's hold for one full breath, whatever version you're in. If you're on your feet, make sure those thigh bones are pressing to the sky and you're squeezing your thighs towards each other. If those heels are rolling out, it's not going to be good for your back. Good, let's come on out and again, roll wrists. Yeah, in fact, doing some wrist love up before gardening and doing yard work or whatever you might be up to is really helpful. I mean, even cycling and other things ask a lot of our wrists. All right, chaturanga, the biggest challenge I think for most people as I've observed. So there are a couple of ways to try and get there, if you will. I think the easiest way to find the right alignment is if you can come into plank and then just drop your knees. Now you've got the right distance for knee down chaturanga. Otherwise, people tend to get too much into kind of a table. So take a nice deep breath here. Find that same stability you had in plank. Everyone try knee down for this first chaturanga. Exhaling, if you would, bring your elbows straight back in by your ribs. And you might need to make little adjustments. Like I could feel my hands were just a little too close to each other. It felt awkward. So I want you to come down and up just a little bit so you're feeling where you feel strong and where you feel like the architecture is kind of falling apart, right? So if your elbows are coming out or you're shrugging or you're swagging, all those things are going to make you just feel ugh. So see now if you can come lower, hold that chest even with the elbows. Hello, triceps, and let go. Give it a little break. Okay. So a reminder that from that position, we either come all the way to the floor as I just did, and we're able to extend into our cobra. We can also come into upward dog from here. We don't have to do that kind of scooping mid-flight, which I will show you. But this sometimes bothersome on people's shoulders. So another option if you want to do upward dog though from the floor is to come up like you did King Cobra, come onto your knees, and then just engage the thigh bones towards the sky. And you can either be on the tops of the feet or you could then curl the feet under.
So that's an option. And let's send it back, downward facing dog. Set your gaze between your feet, drishti gaze, rotate those shoulder heads open. Good. Let's do that one more time. So you're going to come forward into your version of plank. Inhaling plank, maybe knees down. Exhaling chaturanga. And if you're on your feet, try raising your hips a little bit and see if you can get your chest to precede the hips. And then either to the floor or scooping, if you will, to your upward dog. And exhaling downward dog. Marvelous. Let's get off our hands a little while. Come on back, hands walking back to the feet, forward fold. Now there's a marvelous wrist stretch that we can do. And for this you need to just lift one foot at a time and slide the hands under, the palms facing the sole of the foot. And then I want my big toe to actually be all the way up at the crease of the wrist. If you've got it kind of lower down, you're really going to miss out on the advantages of this pose, if you will, the gifts of it. This is a monkey position, and there's another one too, gripping the big toe. But this is this marvelous wrist stretch, and the goal is basically to create a downward pressure through the big toe to feel the stretch. And then as I kind of intend to lengthen my hips towards the sky, doesn't matter if I've ever got my legs straight, but as I intend to lengthen the hips, I get this kind of tractioning. If it doesn't feel good in the wrists or shoulders, don't do it. Take another deep breath. And release. Roll them on out and come on up. And remember, any little organic add-ons, if you're like, oh yeah, I want to do that neck roll with the collar, all that is worth checking out. All right, grab your block if you've got one, because like I said, I'd like to add it in to our options in lateral stretch today. I'm just going to have mine at the ready in that tall position. And we're going to come into a little warrior flow. And as always, you're welcome to add any versions of arm positions and so on. While sweeping overhead is super common, I think it's really important to know that for a lot of people, getting to this position creates kind of this, which is not helpful. So I'd much rather have this be our kind of final upright position, and then you can always resolve in prayer or whatever feels good. So please be in a loving place with your neck and shoulders. All right. So here in mountain, I'm going to pause with my hands in Anjali Mudra, prayer hands at the heart. I've got my thumbs lightly touching. I can feel my palms touching. And I'd like you to please find again that breath into front and back lung space. And we're going to maintain that to the best of our ability now as we kind of create that little athletic stance or push the floor away, as I think of it, bending the knees. Standing crane, lift that left knee. Hold, notice, keep powering down through the inner line of that right foot as you step slowly back, either crescent lunge on the ball of the foot, or if you prefer practicing warrior one with the foot flat. Either way, the hips are shining forward. Beautiful. Check in with that back leg. Get that front thigh bone powering back. Breath in front and back lungs. Perhaps you're adding arms up and out. Maybe you're in jet airplane. Maybe you wanted another round of yoga mudra. Enjoy another breath or two. Maybe adding a back bend, raising up through the chin, perhaps not dropping the head back. They're different. Exhaling, Virabhadrasana 2. Plant that back foot 90, thigh bones rotating open, and reaching out from our heart through the middle fingers. Perhaps you're adding platter hands. Maybe you're alternating. Maybe you're rolling wrists, right? What does your yoga dance look like today? Letting breath fill front and back and also kind of lift and settle us like we're an object kind of bobbing on gentle waves. It is our own breath wave. Keep power in that back leg. Inhale, reaching up through that right arm. And I initially usually gaze up, and then I often switch my vision to the floor. If you'd like to straighten that front leg and give it kind of a break, go for it. Nice counter reaching through that left arm. Give yourself room on the inhale. Again, kind of the breath wave. Inhaling, we create space. Exhaling, we deepen. And now we're going to come forward to lateral stretch. You might initially imagine you're presenting a platter forward. I like doing that because it reminds people that the power is coming from there through to here versus kind of slumping in. And so today, this is where I'm going to invite you to take your block and put it right inside of your right foot. And a reminder that when you look at your right knee, it should align with your toes versus being rotated inward. For some people, this is a very natural position. Others, it's really hard to give that the attention that it needs. So another way to help with it, if this is challenging for you, is think about squeezing your right butt cheek towards the left edge of the mat. And when that happens, you should feel kind of a clicking in, and you can look down and see that this is all flat. We'd also like to keep this torso flat. So it's like we're between two panes of glass. We don't want to become bent and folded and facing our chest towards the floor. So I'm offering a deepening in this pose, but please don't take it if it takes you out of alignment, right? Come on back to the previous version. So our basic version is elbow lightly connecting to thigh, shoulder heads anchored down, and I'm sending those right ribs towards the left ribs towards the sky, right? And then this left arm sometimes is straight up. We play with binds and so on. I'm going to be doing more of that in Thursday's class this week. But the main thing I'm wanting you to experiment with is what happens once you get that left shoulder stacked. If you take that right hand down to the block, are you able to maintain that flat position? Does it feel like it's a good stretch? Would you like to take the block down a level? Keep thinking about that right glute sending towards the left edge of the mat. Keep thinking about stacking that left shoulder. And that might be plenty. And you could add your arm reaching out overhead. You could take the block lower, and some of you might find, hey, I think I can come on down to fingertips, and that feels good to me. So we want to have sufficient support to provide great alignment, because that's where the body gets the right amount of work and freedom. And as you reach that left arm forward overhead, again, think about stacking the shoulder, stacking the hips. One more long inhale, like you want to push a button on with that middle finger, power coming from the back foot. And exhaling, release. Remove the block and step back, downward dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh. You could also go to child's pose. All right, and you could walk the hands back to the feet again, which I'm going to do for the shoulder work. You could also lunge forward. This walking the hands back, it's like you're just going to bring one hand back about 4 or 5 inches or one hand length, and then push until you get full extension in that arm, and then the next one, and the next one. It's just great. You know, we don't get a lot of opportunities to push weight over our head, and we need that form of strengthening in our shoulder joints for them to be healthy. So go ahead and just move a little, sway a little, and then as you're ready, come on up. Nice drop of the butt to sweep up with powerful legs and prayer hands. Notice breath. Notice temperature, notice heart rate, and so on. All right, coming into mountain again at the front of the mat. Give it a little push, again, that little athletics kind of pulsing, and bringing that right knee up, standing crane. Nice Ujjayi breath into front and back of the lungs. Powerful core. Slow journey back, crescent lunge.
It's almost like you're trying to see where you're going to land and intentionally set down. Good. Is this side different? And what does it take to get this thigh bone to power back, to steer those hip bones, to keep the power or anchoring in the inner foot of that left foot? Really, it's the whole foot, but I don't want to lose contact with the inner foot. That's the key that keeps this leg in the right alignment and gives me the actual stability at the pelvic girdle that I need in order to protect my low back and be strong in the core. You know, we often think core is about your abdominal muscles, and so much of it is elsewhere. So add, when you're ready, your arms, breath attention on the lung space, the massage. Pulsing, enjoying, riding that wave. And opportunity, if you'd like, again, to add a back bend, sending the ribs forward and up. Exhaling, neutral the spine before opening up to your Virabhadrasana 2. And I don't often talk about this, but I've had people ask, you know, what's the right alignment of the front and back foot? You want the front heel in alignment with the back heel, basically. Some people do teach it with the front heel in alignment with the back arch, but I think that tends to actually create some stress on some people's knees. And so this to me feels like the more natural, healthy alignment of the two. And you might add platter hands. Again, you can kind of check out your body. Are you flat between two panes of glass? What does that feel like? And you use the power of that back leg to send the hips a little deeper forward and down, knowing that you don't have to hold. As you inhale, reach up with that left arm. If you'd like a break, again, straighten that leg. You can, of course, go back and forth. And as you're ready, coming towards your lateral stretch, again, checking that that left rib cage is rising up to the upper, that the shoulder head is anchored and not forward, and of course that the pelvis is in alignment. So here it's that left glute pressing towards that right edge of the mat. So pause and notice. Sometimes I take my hand to that upper hip and just kind of bring it away from my knee. I kind of push them in opposite directions, encourage them, I should say, it's a better word. And just notice, what would it be like to come down to that first stage of the block, to the middle. The wider apart your feet are, by the way, the more natural and good this is going to feel. It's intense, but like good. You want that foot right below the knee. Do not let it go forward or behind. And then find your version and add that upper arm. I love this stretch. I often get a little spinal adjustment, and I always get a stretch. In this case, I can feel it all the way down to my hip. Breathing, keep thinking about stacking that top shoulder, but using that left glute to press towards the right edge of the mat. Slow the breath inside of the intensity. One more. And slowly release, remove the block, and step back to downward facing dog, or however you need to get out. Inhale, exhale, sigh. We're going to come all the way to our belly for pre-bow bow. Alternately, you might choose to do a standing quad stretch where you're clasping one ankle at a time. In this position, it's really important that before we start trying to grab our ankle or anything, that we're anchoring down through the pelvis. So I like to bring one arm forward as kind of a support, anchor through the pelvis, then bend and clasp one ankle, then release my forehead, clasp the other ankle, and again, this is with the butt cheeks engaged the whole time. If you can't get a hold of those ankles, remember you're going to use a strap. That can be difficult to do by yourself. So you could again do the standing quad stretch where it's easier to use a strap if you need to on each ankle. Here I am in pre-bow, which means that I'm not actually pressing the ankles back into the hands. I'm just enjoying the stretch through the front body. Again, if you've been doing a lot of sitting or squatting, you might really feel this. Keep anchoring the inner thighs towards each other. That's really key, so the knees are straight back from the hips. And you can let go at any time. You could also take this into bow by pressing the ankles into the hands. And your option, you could come in and out a few times. And at some point, you could, of course, hold if that feels good. If you feel any back or shoulder pain, you come out right away. This should just feel like hard work from a breath standpoint to breathe here, but good stretching, good massage. And release, turn your head to the side. Letting breath fill the front and back of the lungs. And in this moment, softening your body completely with gravity. Non-doer, nothing to prepare for, just this moment. All right, we're going to be preparing. See, I lied. No, it's true. You know that we're always going to do something at some point, but if we can just soften in the moment, that's the powerful thing. When you're ready, we're going to be coming into downward facing dog. If you feel that you need a child's pose first, it's a really nice counter stretch to bow pose, please do. And then as you're ready, downward facing dog. We're going to do a little flow here. By the way, an alternate, if you don't want to do any wrist work, would be to just come in and out of, we're going to be doing a lunge, in and out of a lunge to dog, and you could simply come from standing to lunge back to mountain again, kind of like basically coming from mountain to crescent lunge and so on. So as you're ready, downward facing dog, check in with that same alignment, shoulder heads anchored, hips rising, working the heels towards the floor. We don't care if they ever get there. And we're going to take that right leg flying. You could be doing this in table if that was preferred over dog. Good. On your exhale, round deeply to bring that right foot forward. Good. Now pause. We're going to come into a twist. Bring your right foot a little out to the right if it feels kind of awkward having it too centered. If you need a block, you could use it right here. And rotating open to the right. So again, you could be doing a lunge version of this. I think we just did that last week, maybe prayer hands and a lunge, a twist. Good. Just a couple more deep breaths. Finding that body rotation. It's like you're wringing a kitchen rag. Try not to let your, hips swing far one way and your torso. We're trying to stay between two panes of glass again. And release out. Downward facing dog. Good. Let's send that left leg flying. And the more the body can pulse on breath, the better. Exhaling, draw that knee to the belly, get it forward. Walk it to the left if you need to. Block if you like. I find it does provide some nice freedom. I get less kind of impingement in the hip. Opening up. And giving the breath room. And releasing. Awesome. Opportunity for a dog series if you would like. Otherwise, holding in a dog or just a resting pose like child's. We're going to come into that same flow we just did one more time. Inhale and take the right leg flying. If you'd like, briefly bend the knee and open up the hip. In Thursday's flow class, we're going to be doing kind of a fun thing with this. I won't tell you what, but hope you might enjoy finding out and maybe doing it. We'll see. Slowly bring that right foot forward for your twist. And bring that right hand to the right thigh. Remember, you don't ever have to reach to the sky, so if your shoulder's like, I don't like that, don't do it. And release out, dog. Left leg flying. Bend the knee, open up that hip. Keep working through both arms. Watch that floor foot that it's not rotating. And slowly forward into your lunge. Nice long lunge. That's the key to being able to enjoy the rotation. The spine
never rotates as well when it's compressed. And release out. If you would like any dog series work, if you're someone who's craving more flow, you can always add that in to these practices. Otherwise, slowly walk those hands back. Inhale, root and rise. And prayer hands. All right, we're going to go ahead and grab our strap or belt or whatever you've got on hand. This is always, I found, an interesting pose for people, partly because you find out how different your two sides are. But you also want to just do everything very slowly, because we're asking the shoulders to move through a range of motion that they're designed for, but that we often aren't using. And so we don't want to assume that they'll just be like, okay, no problem. So I'm going to take my strap or scarf or whatever in my right hand. I'm going to throw it over my shoulder so that it's just kind of hanging down. And I want to, again, be in kind of an athletic stance. This is important. And so the first thing I'm going to do is actually kind of work my right elbow forward and up and back. And again, kind of pumping the shoulder, exploring it. And then I'm going to take my left arm and I'm just going to kind of wave it front and back. I've got my palm facing backward. And then at some point, with it in its most backward position, I'm going to start bending and trying to bring the left hand as high up on the scarf or strap or whatever as I can. Now, if you're able to get close enough that you can hook the fingers, which I can on this side, you'll find I cannot on the other, and it feels good, then great. If not, then you just keep holding on to your strap at whatever height. And then you want to pause, make sure you're really in your core, and to keep working the upper elbow back and the left elbow kind of in, the lower elbow in towards the body. And we breathe. I want you to notice where you feel the sensation, because we really want to compare this to the other side. And ever so slowly, let your lower hand release and slide down. Really slow. And give it some nice kind of rotations. Marvelous. We're going to go to the other side. So we're taking it, the strap, etc., in the left hand, throwing it over the shoulder. And then we're going to pulse that left elbow, that upper arm, just exploring. What does it take? What does it feel like on this side to get that elbow as far back and in towards the head as possible? Then I'm going to take my other arm and pulse. And start scooching up the back. And pause at whatever spot feels like a good stretch but nothing ouchy. And then we're going to check our alignment again. Nice core. You can see I'm in that bent knee kind of athletic stance. That elbow continuing to move up and back and in. And that lower elbow doing its best to be towards the body. And I'm breathing. Remember, we want the neck to stay as neutral as possible. See if maybe you've gained a little space. You can scooch a little more. And when you recognize that you're complete, just slowly let that lower hand slide on down. Slowly release the upper arm. And check it out. Actually, a nice compliment might be just briefly yoga mudra, that intertwining of the hands, or if you're using a scarf. You could also take the feet a little bit wide, do a nice bend in the knees. Now when you're ready, please come on up and join me for our final posture, goddess pose. And I love this pose for so many reasons. It's a heat builder, but it's like so still. So it's kind of fun that way. Bringing your legs out into a comfortable squat. Okay, so this means that when I bend my knees, there's no stress or whatever. I'm not trying to turn my feet way out. This is meant to feel very neutral. So if I were to jump, I should land in such a way that's natural, and that's where my feet are, okay? And the arms, ideally in goddess, we've got this kind of 90-degree like goalpost, not down here, but up here. But if that hurts, if that's just awkward on your neck or shoulders, then adjust. You could even do a version of this pose with the arms down, or even if you wanted in prayer, like or straight out, right? Anything there. But I'm going to ask you to find your arm position. And in fact, my shoulder today is not appreciating goalposts as I'm feeling that. So I'm going to be straight out like this, okay? Please close your eyes. And knowing that nobody is watching you, including me, I don't even when we're in class together, I want you to please know that there's no like achievement. There's no like, oh, I got a certain distance down. But we do want to explore the edge. So I'm going to ask you to be willing to be present with a little discomfort. Come on down and explore what is available in your squat today. You can kind of pulse. And when you're ready, settle into a place that feels intense but sustainable. And of course, you can adjust it at any time. Deep Ujjayi. Really connecting your energies down into the floor, into the earth. You can even imagine bringing earth energy up, just sustenance, all that powerful soil and all the life force that's there, right? So we're not just floating here above the earth's surface. We're hunkering down in, tapping in. And if you've gotten a nice edge, you might have some good leg shaking going. I hope you do. Soft tongue, just the tip of it connected. Soft gaze. See if you've got 3 more breaths here. Knowing it's only 3, maybe you can go deeper and stay present with intensity. Let's do it. 3 more. Try to make the breath more peaceful even while it's powerful. Last one. And coming on. Nice work. Come on in. Roll those ankles out. Roll those wrists out. Oh. And if you need to do some standing hip pump, if you want to close with a block under the pelvis like we sometimes do, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to take us straight into our cooling breath before Shavasana. And again, if you're thinking you might want to use a bolster for Shavasana, please go ahead and grab that now. And if we're successful with the cooling breath, you might cool down enough that you want like a little shawl or something over you during Shavasana. So take time, gather what you need. I'm going to share with you again this wonderful music to close our practice. So take time, get settled. If you can, seated. If that's just not comfortable for you today, you could certainly practice the cooling breath standing. It's hard to do laying down. It's a very simple breath. I really like it. Find a nice long spine. And when you're ready, you're going to take your tongue and curl it like so, making a nice little tunnel for the breath. And the way the cooling breath works is this. It's inhaling through that curled tongue while lifting the chin, and exhaling through lips that are not quite closed while dropping and lowering the chin. Like so. Inhaling through the curl, lifting. Exhaling through soft lips, lowering. Slow the breath down. Is there more? Is there more? Is there more? Noticing if your mind is
is wandering for these last few rounds, bring it to be deeply attentive to all the sensations. Please continue. You might notice the temperature on the tongue. You might notice just the energetic difference between having the head lifted and the lowering. Of course, always asking, is there more? A couple more rounds, please. After that last round is complete, return your head upright, staying as introverted as you can. Make your transition to Shavasana. Could be just on your back body, child's pose, and so on. We could also make use of the block and the bolster, like so, with one end of the bolster up on the block in its flattest position, the butt on the floor, and then simply reclining onto the bolster for that opening of the front body that I mentioned. Again, one could also just lay on the floor over a rolled up yoga mat along the spine. And lastly, another resting position option is called resting deer pose. And you simply, with that bolster and block in that same position, settle onto one hip, take one hand to either side of the bolster, and then lower your torso down, eventually coming onto the forearms and resting your face. Whatever version you find, please settle in deeply. Give gravity a chance to really do its job, to hold you, to offer you a space for deep rest. You might scan your body and observe any areas that appear to be holding in some way, and invite them to sink, soften, melt. Invite the breath to settle into that slow and passive breath of a baby sleeping. Notice the breath wave gently rising and settling in your body. it as a nourishing wave all the way down to your toes, out into your fingers, into your head and face, and of course, filling the torso, the front and the back body, the front and the back lungs. Know that whatever your practice looked like, it was exactly as it was supposed to be, and that so many helpful things happened that we're not even aware of. Organs and glands that got massaged and detoxified and nourished. And hopefully a lovely reset into our nervous systems. Notice if that cooling breath felt good to you as a way to cool, but specifically also settle into a quiet space with yourself and with breath. It's so important, however we do it, that we create that settled, quiet space with ourselves every day, even if it's just for a few moments. I'm going to be closing our practice with the singing bowls and oms. Happy to have you join me. You're also welcome to just stay in your own quiet, settled space. Reminder that when we om, you always have the option of placing an intention with the vibration. We know that om creates vibration in our body, and we like to say that it's the vibration of all things. So it's a wonderful way of just affirming connection, oneness, if you will, with these amazing trees that are leafing out, and the birds, and all the parts of life that we would like to connect with and let ourselves be one with, if you will. You can connect with the divine, whatever name you have for that. But during the first om, I like to send the healing vibration of the practice down into my own body and heart and mind. And then on the second om, I often will offer it in my mind to anyone, a particular person, I should say, who's been in challenge, for whom I have concern. And then on the third, I offer it out to a broader group, community, perhaps even the whole planet, depending on what you have on your mind and heart. If you'd care to join me, please do. Find a long spine if you're seated. Gather that deep inhale to front and back lungs. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace. Namaste.